Well, it is the Christmas season already, and if you're like me, you're probably looking for the right gift for those special people in your life. Well, I encourage you to check out Old Money. We can dress like we come from old money without having to pay the prices that old money might expect. Everyone deserves to dress classy, I think, and Old Money allows you to elevate your style with Old Money fashion without the old money price. You can expect all the best in men's and women's fashion, quality materials that look and feel fantastic that won't drain your savings. Check them out by following the link in the show notes and save 10% as a little gift from me. And good luck with your holiday shopping this season with Old Money. It's time for dinner.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong.
From the creative mind of Scott Bertelson, after 4 decades of teaching our impressionable youth,
The dinner bell.
you are invited to enjoy conversational morsels for the mind at Mr. B's dinner party.
Yeah, dinner.
Well, hello. It's time again. It's time to belly up to the table for Mr. B's dinner party. I hope you have a hearty appetite because I have a wonderful guest here today in the studio. Oh, yes, our mayor of Forest City, Mr. Ron Holland, is here today. Hello, Ron. Nice to meet you and see you, and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Ron, this is so kind of you to give some of your time to talk to us about a number of things. First of all, Ron, I think our general public would like to know about your general history. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Tell us about that, Ron.
Okay, I grew up northwest of Forest City, a little south of Neil Spur, a little spur that's not there anymore. Milk cows by hand, put up loose hay, cultivated and worked on the farm, done all the stuff, and went to country school until 4th grade. Forks number 5, they closed it down halfway through 4th grade and went to 4 city schools.
Okay. And graduated from there.
Yep.
Yes. And then what'd you do, Ron?
Well, at first I thought I didn't need an education. I'd just make it on my own, you know. So I was out in the world for a while and decided that, I got to go back to school to get my foot in the door. So I went to Waldorf, spent a couple of years in Waldorf, graduated there, went to UNI for a semester, and come back that summer and had to get some more money. So I drove tank wagon for Irwin Serp, delivering Phillips 66 gasoline for a summer and part of a winter.
Oh, my goodness.
But my real intention was to be an industrial arts teacher. Industrial arts teachers were paid $6,000 a year. Winnebago hired me for the engineering department at $13,000 a year, and man, I thought I was really into chips. So I went to work at Winnebago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then I bought an acreage.
Yes.
Northwest, just a little ways down the road from where I grew up, and had an older house on it, no basement under it or anything. So decided that I needed to put a new basement underneath it. So talked to the local mover, and he said I'm getting too old. So I went to another one. He wouldn't do it the way I wanted it done. I wanted it jacked up off the ground a ways, and he, you got to tear that off. You got to tear this off. I don't want that off because that's going to be an entrance to my garage. Things like
sure.
that. So I decided I'll do it myself.
Oh, my goodness.
So I went out to Jollifold Construction, rented some steel beams from them. And then Herman Swanson, a gentleman probably in his 80s by that time, he come out and checked on me one day. He wouldn't do it because he said I'm getting too old, but he helped me one day.
Okay.
And learned a lot of things from him over the years. And I raised it up and never worked so hard in my life, getting it all dug out, and new foundation. And had a lot of friends lay block and set it back down in the new foundation, and we're on the road. So then people seen what I done, talking to the older gentleman, Herman Swanson.
Yes.
And he says, go see Ron. He done a pretty good job in his. Well, you know, you're remodeling the house. You need a little money. So I do another job.
Okay.
In my garage. I wanted to put a double-car garage in it. The single one was in the way. I sold it, and the guy says, I'd buy it, but he says, I don't have anybody deliver it. I said, add $50 to it. I'll bring it to you.
Oh,
So we hauled it down to his place a few miles away, and
Okay.
that started rolling in. So then I got into house moving, part-time, still working at Winnebago Industries.
Okay.
And one thing led to another. You need a few coins to fix this up and fix that up. And
Yes.
finally, it got to the point I got to make a choice here. So the last few years working for Winnebago, and that was a good experience. I learned
Yes.
a lot and so
Yes.
on and so forth.
Yes.
And I give them a 3-month notice. Says, I won't be running your last 2 years was running their R&D shop, research and development. And I says, 3 months from now, 1977, March 1, I said, I'm going to leave your employment. Would money make a difference? No. I says, I got to try it on my own.
Oh, my goodness.
So you go out from underneath that corporate umbrella, insurance and all the other stuff done for you.
Yes.
So you start on your own. Art Schultz left. He was working there too as a foreman and still a great guy. Worked with me for many years also. And finally, towards the end, he was to the point where he kind of took the business over. I still done the bidding and all that stuff. But that's kind of the way it all started. But then I seen a need for house moving equipment. Okay, so I started building my own. And there wasn't anything out there.
Oh, my goodness.
I started the Iowa House Movers Association, invited anybody I could find from Rhode Island to California to Texas, even into Canada.
Oh, my God.
Over Clear Lake, we had a convention. And I'd show my equipment. Well, would you make that for me type of deal? So, yeah, if you want to wait till winter when I have more time, I'll do that. So that ended up being a full-time business. First, it was just wintertime work. Later on, it became a full-time business. And I work as a consultant on several lighthouses, just as a consultant. I never had the job itself, and a lot of other big projects. But I also did consulting work and traveled a lot of places to do that. But started the Iowa House Movers Association, which turned into an international association of structural movers. I went through all the boards and that, and it's still going today. So,
Oh, my gosh.
it was a good ride.
I guess it was.
So I think when I left and my son took over,
Yes.
I'd built 1,800 of these house moving dollies all across the country and some foreign countries also.
Oh, my God.
And we leased them out a lot, and it was a good thing. And I bought Iman Implement just north of town where they were at from Mavis Iman at that time, and moved my business in there. And then a little bit later, actually, I had my house there first because I was 92.
Okay.
In there over Mercy Hospital. And overall, I took over 40 houses out of there. He moved to Frank Lloyd Wright House. It made the New York Times, the home section of New York
Oh,
Times.
my goodness.
So it was a fun time. But like I told the wife, I says, imagine, here we're moving a brick house over a 40-ton embargoed Chelsea Creek Bridge, which has been replaced now. So I had to bring the axles down to 13,000 pounds an axle. I had wheels all the way through, 157-ton and over 40 feet high.
Oh.
And 30-some feet wide, all brick.
Oh.
So we moved concrete silos and grain elevators and anything that came along, tile block barns. We done a lot of it, mostly in Iowa, a little bit in Missouri, and southern Minnesota.
Okay.
So it was real fun.
Oh, my gosh. Can you give an estimation of how many different buildings or silos that you have moved?
We only moved 4 concrete stave silos.
Okay.
Yeah, and one big grain elevator.
Okay.
Grain elevator. That was in Pella, Iowa.
Okay.
But then we moved to in West Des Moines, a tile block barn, tile block all the way to the peak.
Oh, my goodness.
And,
Yes.
and then we moved a lot of them for, I think Pioneer Seed, we moved one that was over 200 feet long, 40, 50 feet wide, whatever it was. It just stayed on the property. And so we did the unusual stuff. One of my philosophy is if you do it too good, nobody knows it. But if you don't do it good enough, everybody knows it.
I like that. Yes, that's true. So now with Holland moving, located outside of town, how many people are employed there? How does that work?
Well, now my son passed away.
Yes.
And now Barnhart Crane and Rigging has purchased it. But we was 12 to 14 people usually. Not a big crew on the moving crew. And then we accumulated cranes and so on My son got out of, he was electrical engineering school in Ames and graduated from there. And he come back, wanted a job and doing this like I did. So
yes.
he started doing that, and he upgraded a lot of stuff,
Yes.
more electronics and all that kind of stuff that was kind of beyond me anyway. So, but anyway, it was a good career. I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
It was something that I look back at it and you say, well, you pick this thing up, and they says, where's it going? Well, down to the new lot. How do you move that? Very carefully. So I guess back in 92, I moved the house in the spring, May 11th of 92. Paul Jessen came to me that summer then and says, hey, we got a vacancy on the city council. Would you be interested in being, filling in somebody's position? I says, well, I've never done that before. We'll try that for a while. So
Okay.
started in the fall of 92 then, got on the city council,
Yes.
Ward 1, and went through that and still on it until Barney passed away, and I was mayor pro tem, so I took his place as a mayor then and filled out his term, or 1 year term till election came up, and now I'm on for 4 more years, into the first year now. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wow. And being a mayor of the community of Forest City, how much of your time is involved with that? How does that work?
Not as much as you'd think. There's always meetings and
Yes.
grand openings and different
Okay.
things like that to go to.
Okay.
But I check in every day up
Every
there,
day.
And we got a good city administrator, so she takes a lot of the calls.
I see.
Takes a lot of the burden off of a mayor because she's kind
Okay.
of the boss of the supervisors
Okay.
in between, before you are really. The police report to me, of course, and I don't get many calls at home. It's interesting. If first thing I'll ask them, what's your name and what's your address? And if they won't tell me, I says, I'm sorry, I would consider you not calling.
Okay.
So
I get that.
My game is to make the quality of life in
Yes.
this town as good as it can be.
Yes.
I got a lot of people at Super 8 that used to be out in the south edge of town there.
Yes.
I brought them in here. WCTA telephone, that whole system came in because I went after them. Cybersmith Engineering came in here because I went after them.
Oh my gosh.
And a lot of
Yes.
other businesses like that, like
Yes.
Nearham Industrial Park, actually.
Yes.
I purchased that, and I says, I may change the name it's in. I went to the council, and I says, I'm not making a penny on it. If you want it, fine. If you don't, I'll keep it. So they decided to keep it.
Okay.
So we had a place for industrial park.
Surely.
Plus the other one they had down in the south edge of town.
Sure.
So it's just helping out where you can. And a lot
Yes.
of times it doesn't take a lot just to get the ball rolling, to get people thinking about doing something, improving it and helping and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting journey to help people, and help make decisions when needed and so on. And
Yes.
a lot of things, you don't always have to invent the wheel because it's already been invented. The other thing I like is try new, but don't forget what's tried and true, too.
Oh, yes. That's
So
yes.
I don't mean to take over the conversation here, but
No, I want you to. That's why I wanted to have you on. They've all heard me talk.
I see.
Yes. So when you were on city council, what were some of the, and maybe you've alluded to this already, what were some of the major accomplishments you felt the city council did during that time?
Oh, there's a lot of them, like
sure.
the new generator we put in, that was a generator from a shutdown nuclear plant out in the state of Washington. And Lake Mills got one. I actually did the one first for Lake Mills, unloaded it off the rail car and took it into their light plant. So then Jim Gilmer had the other one, and he called us, and we was looking for one, because we had to keep up with we have to have enough capacity to generate the whole town. Even though we buy our power wholesale from Dairyland, or most of it, some of it comes from solar and wind also. But so we have to have enough capacity for that.
Yes.
And so we made a deal with him. He come in here and made a deal. Jim Gilmer was his name. Great guy. And we had it shipped in here by rail. I took a special rail car. It's 160 ton or thereabouts.
Oh, my God.
And it was cold out in wintertime. And we built onto the building. And then before the rest of the building was put up, we rolled it in. The foundation was already in, rolled it in, lowered it on its new foundation.
Okay.
And it's still there today, working good. So
Yes.
hardly had any hours on it. It's just been test run is all.
Oh, my
done.
gosh.
It was half price. Made in Beloit, Wisconsin, going all the way out to the state of Washington and coming back. And Lake Mills got one and we got one.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah.
What a wonderful
And
thing.
then there's a lot of other street projects that we
Sure.
did, and the normal stuff that a city has to do from day to day. But it's fun to be involved in some of the decision making and other things that a city has to do.
So, what was it like for the shift from a city council person to mayor?
Well, my biggest problem with that is you don't get to vote anymore. So you lead the
see. Yes.
you lead the meeting.
Yes,
and,
yes.
And you kind of direct it a little bit here and there, so you got that capabilities, but you don't get to vote anymore. And so I can veto, resolutions or something like that, but I can't veto a motion.
I see.
So some of the stuff is kind of out of your hands,
Yes.
You can't really
Yes.
make that decision, but I try and lay it out so the people can do it. And we have committees, and I appoint the committees, 3 people on a committee, one's a chairperson for different departments like the street, and water, wastewater, and electric, and so on and so forth. And then the committee should look into it and help make the rest of the council decide what to do, what is right to do.
Of course.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it works, and they bring that information back to the council, because sometimes you only got a few minutes, to make that decision. So, yeah.
Interesting. Do you see yourself doing this for quite some time if elected? I mean, do you enjoy being mayor?
It's interesting.
Yes.
If you can, I like to help people.
Yes.
Like today, I helped a friend of mine find his septic tank so he could do it because he was going to dig it by hand. I said, no, I got a machine we can do it. And I just got that put away. That's why I was 5 minutes late here.
Oh, no big deal.
And, but doing this and then I have a hobby, I got a sawmill. Like Mr. Thompson, he has one too.
Right.
And I'm plain lumber and I make stuff. I made my own coffin and I make other stuff. And some of it I give away, some of it I get a little something for it. But it's just a hobby. It's not a business. It's a hobby.
Right.
And split a little firewood and do
Yes.
other things like that. So, but like the coffin I built out there, it was a local tree
Yes.
that was cut down. I milled it up into planks and then dried it in my kiln and then planted it in lumber. And a gentleman by the name of Bob Kiefler helped me some with it too. He's a real craftsman I'm more steel, machining and things like that. But the wood is interesting. It's like opening up a book.
Yes.
You think the best log will not always be the best log, and sometimes you run into things, especially yard trees and things like that. There can be nails and wire in them and odds and ends and stuff. But overall, it's pretty interesting to do it.
Oh, my gosh.
So I keep busy.
Okay. So I just want to clarify. You have your own coffin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the second one, and I got the third one in the process now.
Oh, my gosh.
And will I use it, or somebody else may use it?
Right.
It's out of walnut. I think it's fairly nice.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yes.
I think it was almost bought.
Oh, my gosh. Oh.
And I made a lot of other things too,
Yes.
Little pieces here and there. Somebody needs a board, or somebody needs this, or now somebody needs that, So, yeah.
So maybe you made a reference to this, Ron, but I wanted to get back to this. The house in which you live in now came from Mason City.
Yes, at the hospital there.
Hospital. Okay. So approximately how long did it take to get that house over here?
We started at 12:01 midnight because that was part of the permit process.
Oh.
I'll tell you an interesting story.
I love stories.
We was coming out of Mason City,
Yes.
turning up what used to be Brackey and Woolham, the John Deere store there, and headed north
Yes.
on Kildare Avenue,
Yes.
waiting for the wires, and here comes a DOT officer. Wanted to see my permit. Yes, ma'am. So I went and got it, and there were so many. We had axles behind the house, in front of the house, and everything else. And she wanted to see it, and it would have taken her an hour to try and measure that up, Pretty soon the guy in the bucket truck up there that was holding the wires up, Mom, leave him alone. We got to get going here. So she gave me the permit back and says, "Have a nice day." And she
Oh my gosh.
So away we went, and we started at midnight, run all night, all the next day, and got out in front of the street there on Golf Course Road at 5:00 in the afternoon. And we got, I got pictures of it. I got a whole history of the whole thing. I got a scrapbook and everything. But what was Permite at that time?
Yes.
The parking lot was full, not because they were at the store. They were all pointed to watching this thing come in. It was kind of interesting. The other day I was visiting with Brian Miller. He had a couple oak logs that he wanted to get rid of. And he says, this is my son. He's 30 years old now. He says, we brought him home from the hospital, just got here and seen your house go by on the highway. So it was kind of fun.
Yes.
But there was a lot of people, and some of them actually got a little unhappy with me and said, "How come you didn't let me know you was going to do that?" And well, how do you do that? So anyway, people enjoyed it and took a lot of pictures and so on and so forth.
Oh my God.
But we took over 40 houses out of Mercy Hospital.
Oh my goodness.
Relocated them all over. We took one, like the Friedman House where MBT Bank 2 is at. That went clear up by Thompson, and a lot of houses back in the day when Waldorf was expanding.
Yes.
Down there in 11th Street.
Yes.
I moved all them houses in except for the one on the corner, that brick house on the corner. I did not move that. It was built there.
Okay.
But like the YMCA, one of them come from the YMCA before that was built.
Yes.
And some other ones most of them came from Waldorf area. And just move them down there and set them up on a new foundation and go after another one.
Oh my gosh. So again, speaking from ignorance here, Ron. So then when you move a house, you have to have special permission from some authority to move it down the road?
Yes.
DOT?
First of all, you have the state. You start with the state.
Okay.
If you're on a state highway.
Okay.
Then every county you go through, you have to go to the county engineer and get their permission from every county. And sometimes they'll send a crew along to move signs for you if you need it and so on and so forth if something's in the way.
I see.
You have to have all the permits before you start.
Oh my goodness.
And then you got to contact all electric companies.
Yes.
There could be two, it could be one, it could be a half a dozen of them.
Yes.
So like the one we moved from that motel down in Garner, we moved up before the, excuse me.
Sure.
Take care of that. That one, we run it right down the state highway,
Yes.
And right through Forest City and all the way down because it was so wide. We was 40-some feet wide.
Right.
And we had DOT escorting us and everything else, and all the utility companies ended up here by Bransted's. And when Monty was alive, and
Yes.
I called down there and I says, I'd like to get a permit, make sure I can move this as approximate weight, and this is what I'll do, so on and so forth. Well, he said, can you give me a better description where it's going to go? I said, sure. I said, it's just, just north of Leland, right on the highway. It pulls into that farm place. Well, give me the name. And he says, it's Mr. Monty Branstead. There was a hesitation, and he says, is that any relation to the governor? Yeah. I said, it's his brother. And he should have never said this, but he says, oh, that could make a difference. And I've never figured that quite out. But anyway, they checked me twice before I moved.
Okay.
Made sure all the weights and everything were accurate.
Yes.
He says, you got good to go. So.
Oh, my goodness.
So we made that move. And,
Yes.
And we've done several churches, a lot of churches.
Okay.
One was on National Geographic. They sponsored that down in Manson, Iowa, as a church. And nice church, and we moved that, and of course in the Heritage Park. I don't know if you're familiar with Heritage Park.
Yes.
I was one of the founders of that. Laid out where stuff went. Jim Oman was a big help, and several other people, a lot of people, and we brought in. But all the old buildings out there have been moved in by us, with the church including. And one of them we even pulled in with a steam engine just to make it look like the old days with steel wheels and everything.
Oh my gosh.
It was just fun to do.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah. So
yes.
So all the old buildings have been moved in there, including the Johnson Museum outside of town there that had all the stone around it, stone fireplace, and we brought that in and set it on a Timberland Museum out there. So.
Okay.
And then the 3 barracks that came up from Waldorf College, that one of them's turned into a military museum, very, very nice out there. So, and a lot of other ones. So.
Now, when Heritage Park was established, did quite a few of those buildings come from the Holton farm then?
No, well, let's see, about 4 of them did.
Okay.
Yeah, about 4 of them did. And the Holtons they lived out there for a period of time. And,
yes.
Until he passed away, he was just a go-getter.
He was.
He was up in his 90s by that time and still going get. He had friends help him. He built a lot of that railroad track around there, which hasn't quite been completed, but it's far enough we can do
okay.
Use it, some of it yet. So, yeah, the barn came from right next door, where Pritchard's is at now.
Yes.
And the Steel Wheel Cafe, that was part of the garage over there. We made it into that. The 2 restrooms came from the interstate over there. We picked them up with a crane. They were supposed to go to the school, and some vandal went in and broke all the windows out of them. Well, we didn't want windows anyway. It was going to be bathrooms, So they give it up and didn't want them anywhere. So we picked them up and hauled them over here, and that's the 2 restrooms up there.
Oh, my gosh.
There's one of them there that's what we call the jail. That came from Garner. It's a block building.
Yes.
In the jail. The firehouse, the roof came from a food store there on Highway 69, right where the bank is at there.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that
right.
was there.
I remember that.
Yeah, we took the roof out there, and then we sawed up all the lumber out there. And the telephone poles we got from Dairyland and built the building. The roof from that, for the station, that was just the roof. It was a block one, and then we built the framework underneath it and stuccoed it. The 2 houses came from Winnebago. They didn't want them anymore.
Okay.
So we moved them out there and
Sure.
set up a couple houses. So, yeah.
Well, there's your history right there.
Yeah.
My gosh.
So
That is amazing. And there's so many great events held out there.
Yes.
Yes. It's such a rich cultural place to go. It really, really is.
Yes, we have Tracy Gomez now is kind of the curator out there.
Oh, I see.
And takes care of a lot of things. She has a lot of good ideas. And I haven't been out there quite as much involved in it as I used to be. But I still help them out when they need it. I have a lot of stuff in the transportation building. Have you ever been out there yourself?
Yes.
The one with the big gear in front of it?
Yes.
Yeah. I've got a lot of those articles in there.
Okay. Wow. Yes.
So.
Yes, that is really great. So anyway, Ron, can you tell me a little bit about your family? How many children you had and marriage and things like that?
Yeah, my oldest daughter is Lisa.
Okay.
She kept Holland as her name, and she's worked over at Mercy in 5 East for probably 30 years now. And the next one was Chris Holland, and he was 49 when he passed away from a massive stroke. And then we have Cindy, and she also kept her Holland for her last name. And all 3 of them I moved houses for them. They're set up, and some other people too. But they have Cindy's got 4 children. Chris has 4 children.
Yes.
And then my oldest daughter's got 2 children, and she adopted 3 more. So she had a big family.
Oh my goodness! So busy as a grandfather.
Yes. We're supposed to go to a game Saturday now, so
I see. Does that keep you quite busy with?
Not as much as you'd think, but we try and hit them when we can, here and there. Sometimes they're clear over in North Springs, Manly, been the football games and here and there and do this, fit it in, when you can. So,
yes.
Yeah, good kids.
Oh, you're so lucky. That's so great.
Yeah.
So you would consider yourself somewhat retired at this point, then, Ron? Or what's the term you would use?
Well, tired, I think is a good one.
Okay.
Retired. You can call it retired. I call it tired. A little tireder than I used to be. No, it's fun. I'm one of these guys that I can't sit home and watch TV on the couch every day. That would just drive me nuts. I got to be doing something. And
I believe it.
My philosophy is do a little something every day, and you'll get it done. Like they say.
So true.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So,
Yes.
it's just great to be alive, I guess. But I love, helping people and doing things and keeping busy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So there's not any grass growing underneath your feet.
Not very often. But you kind of get up when you want to and go to work when you want to. But usually the wife, I help her out when I can too, and she's a busybody also. But we've got a lot of grass to mow and things like that.
Yes.
There's always a lot of we're in the city limits, but it's almost like an acreage.
Yes, it is.
I should tell you a little story about when
Sure, of course.
My house. I bought the house first. Now I got to find a lot over here in Forest City somewhere.
Yes.
And Dick Bershaw had we moved a house right next to it from Waldorf College years before that. Mm-hmm. And there was a sign up there for sale. So I called him up and I says, I see you got a for sale sign. And he says, no, I decided not to sell it. Oh, and bing, hung up the phone. I called him back and I says, I don't want your house. I want the property back. Well, that's the part I want to sell, he says. Oh. So the theory behind that, don't give up the first time.
Very true.
So he wanted to sell the property beside it. Perfect. It was up the hill there. So So we there was nothing on it, just a horse pasture. We planted all the trees.
Oh my God!
Over 200 evergreen trees, and went from there and put a nice basement underneath the house. And and it's been a good home for us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is wonderful. Yes, that is just great.
And Cindy, we moved a house for her. They both live over north of Mason City.
Okay.
And she's a nurse too.
Right.
So they do their thing. But we moved a house that come from that greenhouse on the east side of Mason City there. They closed down.
Yes.
So she bought the house and we moved it over there for her. The other one, I'll tell you another interesting story if you like stories.
I do.
My oldest daughter, which is Lisa, Avenue of the Saints went through years ago, okay? Mm-hmm. This house is going to be in the way. Mm-hmm. So they put it up for sale. Mm-hmm. And she says, Dad, what should I give for that house? It was an older 2-story house, but it was pretty good shape. And I says, well, they wanted $1,500 starting bid. I says, offer them $100. Oh, so she did, and they laughed at her. But they had no other bids either. Oh. So I says, here's Mr. Branstad, our governor. Here's his number. You call him and tell him that they said they were going to destroy that house and haul it to a landfill, and here you want to put it back in a tax roll, and recycle that. I always say we're one of the largest recyclers because we recycle the whole house.
Absolutely.
And so I don't think she even talked to Terry. Talked to his assistant, told him, I want to buy this house, put it on a tax roll. I need a home to live in rather than destroy it. Mm-hmm. Called her back 2 days later and said, you bought a house. So the rest of the story is, I loaded a house up in wintertime.
Yes.
Turned bitterly cold. And I asked for an extension to leave it on the property there. Nope, you don't get an extension. Okay. Now what do? The electric company wouldn't work because it was too cold for them, and I don't blame them. Mm-hmm. So I talked to the farmer. I says, would you care if I cut your fence there? Because that was all going to be taken away anyway. And then I'll back it out into your field. I got to get off there. Yeah, no problem, he says. So I backed it out in the field. Weather got nicer. Electric company ready to work. Pulled it right in through and out the same driveway and way down the road we went. So.
Oh, my gosh.
So I've got a lot of stories like that. it's kind of fun. It's interesting to do the unusual.
Yes.
That not everybody does. Mm-hmm. I had a guy one time, we moved a house up by Thompson, and he was, and then we took the old house and we was moving it for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And he says, I wouldn't be a house mover for nothing. He says, I don't know how you can do that, so on and so forth. And I says, well, you're laying carpet here. Things I hate the worst? Laying carpet and linoleum. We both laughed and decided that, everybody to their own.
That is so true. We all have our niche, don't we?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh. And yours was house moving, which I find so fascinating and unusual for an occupation in a positive way. Mm-hmm. Yes. It just seems so dangerous to me.
That's not really. I never had anybody maybe a pinched finger once or twice in my career. And I can say that now because I'm out of the business.
Yes, I know.
But 40 years of it, part-time, that's including part-time and full-time.
Yes.
And all kinds, made a lot of different people. And there's, you almost forget about some of the jobs, and you go to a fair or something and say, "Hi, Mr. Holland, how are you today?" I was over there, and this vendor he made big table slabs and all this stuff. He says, "Yeah," he says, "when I was about 14, 15 years old, I helped move this round barn to such a place." I says, "Mr. Holland did it, I think, was a mover." I says, "Yeah, you're talking to him." He couldn't believe it. He said, "I got to call my dad and tell him that I met you." So
Oh my gosh.
it was a round barn. It was completely round. It was wood frame, though.
Yes.
And moved it a few miles and put it in a park.
Okay.
And they used it for recreational and stuff like that.
Of course.
So, I never knew what was coming down the road. There was all kinds of different things. So
Yes.
we raised a lot of houses for new basements. They had rock foundations and so on. And I worked on my house. I never worked so hard in my life because I didn't have the right tools or the right knowledge or, everything you needed.
Yes.
And what took me probably a month and a half to do,
Yes.
part-time, I was working too.
Yes.
I'd do it in 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
From start to finish. And then, of course, the cement people come in and put the cement down,
Yes.
poured walls or block walls, whatever they wanted, and then I'd come back and set it back down on the foundation for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, did many, many, many. I think one time I had 32 houses up at one time.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So it takes a lot of cribbing, a lot of beams, a lot of blocking,
Yes.
and everything to go with it. But
Yes. Yes. Well, it sounds like you've just had an extraordinary career.
oh, I loved it. It was.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It was a challenge. Get the job. We'll figure out how to do it.
Yes.
Because most things can be done. And I rented out a lot of equipment to move big projects, all over the country. I was clear down the Olmsted County project down in southern Illinois, and helped them. And another one I went, they had the stuff to do it on a trailers, these go-offer trailers with multiple axles underneath. They still couldn't get across a bridge. They didn't had too much weight on the bridge yet, so they had to spread it out even further. So we rented them dollies, and they wanted me there to make sure they were using them right.
Sure.
Put them in there, crossed the bridge, took them back out. You're going, so I go back home again.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
So it was entertaining. I've been clear out. I was out in Washington one time, moved a big building out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, pretty soon I was up in Kingston, Ontario, Canada.
Yes.
3 big brick houses. I didn't do the moving now. I just went up there as a consultant, and we leased him a lot of equipment and dollies to do it on. And, finally the guy says, he said, "What should I do here?" And asking a lot of questions. Finally, just talk to the driver here. He says, "You get the lead one." So I got to work in Kingston, Ontario, Canada.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So many happy memories you can reflect on.
Oh yeah, and I got scrapbooks.
I bet you do.
And I used them as a tool.
Yes.
If I went and you wanted me to do a job,
yes,
I'd open a scrapbook and say, "Here's one pretty close to what you did. It was in such and such a place, and this is what we did with it."
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of convincing.
Mm-hmm.
One time there was a lady in Algona. She says, "Let me see your fingers." Well, yeah, what do you want to see my fingers for? Well, she says, "I wanted to make sure you had them all to see if you was a safe mover." There's stories after stories of things like that.
Oh my God.
It makes life interesting.
It really does, doesn't it, sir? Well, I want to thank you so much for giving your time today to talk about that. And I've always found that fascinating, that form of craftsmanship, I guess I would call it. And then I wanted to have people find out about you as a mayor of Forest City and how much you enjoy doing that.
Yeah, it's there's times when people will call up, and the city administrator takes a lot of these calls,
yes.
Most of them, in fact.
Yes.
And say, "Oh, my garbage, they haven't picked it up. They're half an hour late." Well, give them a little time, Maybe they had more that day to. I mean, give me a break. And there's been other things like that too.
Okay. But not earth-shattering.
No. And there's always something going on somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure.
So It's interesting.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ron, for...
Is that all the stories you want to hear already? We got more if you want them.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Well, maybe, folks, we can have a part 2.
Yeah, there we go.
Part 2 with Ron Holland.
Well, it's great. Thanks for thinking of me.
Of course, sir. I've been meaning to do this for quite some time. And you were just so enjoyable to interview. So thank you for taking the time.
Oh, anytime.
Okay, I might hold you to that.
You bet.
All right, well, folks, there you have it. Mr. B's dinner party. We had Mr. Ron Holland up to the table, and I think that you should have had a scrumptious meal listening to all the great stories from this great man. So, without further ado, I look forward to seeing you again soon in podcast land, and take care and behave yourself. Bye-bye.
Mr. B's Dinner Party is hosted by Scott Bertelson, edited and produced by Troy Thompson, recorded and distributed at Sunnyside Farm Studios. Music is provided by Soundstripe and platformed by Buzzsprout. Like our page on Facebook, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share with your friends. Listen and enjoy every other Wednesday. Conversational morsels for the mind on Mr. B's Dinner Party.
Sit still. I said, I can't. Something's tickling me. She thought I was crazy. She said, well, open your coat. I unbuttoned my coat and opened it up. There was a mouse.
Stories. Everybody has them. The stories of our parents, grandparents, and our friends remind us who they are.
That's kind of what I think it is, too, is memories. Growing up, my dad was an English teacher.
How they got here, and what they've learned on the way. What if you could collect as many of your loved ones' stories in a high-quality audio format to keep forever? What if you could share the sound of your loved one's voice, their laughter, and their thoughtful manner with your children? Or when you are simply driving to work?
He spent literally 3 months in North Dakota freezing buckets of ice water to make this awesome ice fort that we never spent time in, but it was amazing for the moment it was done.
Well, you can with a Sunny Side of Life biography. Produced here at Sunnyside Farm Studios. I'll sit down with your loved one for 1, 2, or several sessions to record their stories.
I think my students are going to have good memories of me.
You'll receive the full raw recording, an edited selection arranged in audio chapters for easy reference, and produced segments you can use for family gatherings, special moments, or anytime you just want to hear your loved one's voice.
And those are probably my most cherished things.
Share it with your family and make it a keepsake, because that's what stories are, keepsakes of the time we had together.
Never forget that. I was petrified of mice after that forever.
Email your query for more information to Troy at sunnysidefarmstudios.com. The email is also in this show's notes. Let me record your loved one's story so you can share the sunny side of their life in their own words for years to come.
I actually do kind of remember that now.